The true Bitcoin bull market has started. After the presidential election, Bitcoin made a move that signifies the start of the next bull market. It blew through the previous all-time highs with reckless abandon. If you've followed my work for a while, you may have noticed that earlier in 2024, I was skeptical that we were in a new bull market because we only barely broke the previous all-time high, which was set in 2021. In past bull markets, if Bitcoin doesn't dramatically exceed the previous all-time high with a lot of momentum, then you're usually in for a significant pullback. If we go back and look at 2017, you'll notice that the previous all-time high was back here. And when 2017's bull market tried to contend with it, it wasn't able to break through very high. From its new high to its low, Bitcoin actually pulled back 33.49%. It wasn't until its next attempt in April where it truly broke out and broke through the previous all-time high in such a way that it signified the start of the next cycle. You can see that the same thing happened in a much lesser way in 2020 at the start of that bull market cycle. Bitcoin went and tried to break through the previous all-time high and couldn't really make it. In this case, Bitcoin only pulled back a little bit, 11.82%, before rallying and being able to break through to its new all-time highs. You can see that in 2024, we only barely broke through the all-time high. In fact, we kept contending with it and getting rejected over and over again. Because of this, in March, I started warning that we could expect a more serious pullback than we had been seeing. There are plenty of bulls out there who said that this pullback was significant enough, but it was 22.31% from the then all-time high. That wasn't big enough. Even this one that started in June only pulled back 25.69%. Both of these would be the shallowest pullback from an all-time high in Bitcoin's history. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't possible that those could be a bottom, but when you're looking at it statistically speaking, it's highly unlikely that this time will be different and we'll see a very shallow pullback. Even when Bitcoin had pulled back 27.52% from its all-time high to its low in July, I was posting on X. I didn't think that was the bottom. And I was trying to warn people that we could see a deeper pullback. However, for me, it's not because I'm bearish. I always predict these pullbacks because I want to have buying opportunities to add to my position at lower prices. I wouldn't want to go all in when we're only down 25% and then have Bitcoin sell off 75 or 80% as it does in crypto winners. It didn't take long for me to be proven right. On August 5th, when we had the end of the Japanese yen carry trade, we saw Bitcoin pull back 33.27%. I had an alarm set on my trading view that would let me know when Bitcoin had broke below 31%, which was one of the shallowest pullbacks it's ever made. So when it did that break on August 5th, I posted on X that now that it had done that, this is no longer the shallowest cycle pullback. I was buying hand over fist and telling people that this meant we could now look for bottoms. It's possible that Bitcoin could sell off more, but I thought we were looking for bottoms now and not a bigger pullback. It turned out that that was the day of the bottom for this bull market cycle. Bitcoin bottomed around $49,500 and then rallied from there. After the presidential election, you can see that Bitcoin broke above the previous all-time high, but it didn't stop. It didn't offer very much of a pullback to add to your positions. It kept going higher. That's what Bitcoin does at the beginning of the next bull market cycle. Bitcoin doesn't just make a slight new all-time high. It positively decimates the old all-time high. If it doesn't do that, then you need to start looking for pullbacks. But now that it has, and we are in the next Bitcoin bull market cycle, what can we expect from here? It might be tempting to think that Bitcoin just makes a straight shot to its new all-time high, but that's not true. In all prior Bitcoin bull markets, it has pretty substantial pullbacks from intermediate high to intermediate high before it makes the final all-time high of the cycle. If we look at 2017, you can see that on its way to making its all-time high near $20,000, it pulled back substantially. In June, it pulled back 39.53% from its then high to the bottom that it saw. Later in 2017, it did it again, pulling back 40.24% in September of 2017. And finally, it made one last pullback before reaching its all-time high, dropping 30.27% in November of 2017. and then rally to make its all-time high at $20,000. In 2021, Bitcoin had a very similar kind of movement. Now, it only pulled back twice of a significant nature, but it still gave you those two big pullbacks to have as buying opportunities on its way to its all-time high around $69,000. The first pullback happened in January of 2021, where it pulled back 31.24%. Later in 21, it pulled back again, 26.31%. This time in February. So about a month later, you had two opportunities to buy at a substantial discount before Bitcoin would make the all-time high for that cycle. The reason I don't go further back than the 2017 bull market was that was when retail really started getting in. In the prior bull market cycles, there wasn't as much participation. Coinbase wasn't around, and there weren't a whole bunch of exchanges that were legitimate to get involved. But even still, that gives us 5 different price targets that we can look at to figure out where Bitcoin might pull back to if it's hit its intermediate all-time high right now. As of the taping of this video, Bitcoin just made a new all-time high at $94,878.75. So let's look at price targets we might have if it pulled back to a similar fashion that it did in 2021 and 2017. Our first pullback target is 26.31%. This gives us a price target pullback of $69,916.15. And you can see that lines up very well with a lot of price action that Bitcoin had contended with in the past. Our next price target is a 30.27% pullback. This gives us a downside target of $66,158.95. And once again, you can see that there's a lot of price action in the past. So that might be a good level of support if Bitcoin pulled back. Our third price target is very close to the last one. It's a 31.24% drop, and that gives us a price target of $65,238.63. And you can see on this day, October 23rd, that was the low that Bitcoin pulled back to. So there's a lot of past history when it comes to that particular price. From there, the next drop we have is 39.53%. And this brings us all the way down to $57,373.18. And once again, looking in the past, there's a lot of price history here, and that could be a level of support. And finally, looking at the fifth one, the most dramatic pullback that we've seen in a Bitcoin bull market where Bitcoin continued to make new all-time highs, is 40.24%. This gives us a price target of $56,699.54. And just like I've been saying, look at all that price action that's happened there. Now, it might seem extreme that Bitcoin could pull back this far. And I know that the temptation is to say that this time is different because we've got more participation. There's the possibility of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. All of the other different things that make this bull market feel even more bullish. But I'll share a secret with you. Every single Bitcoin bull market has had one thing in common. All the bulls have said, this time is different. Bitcoin's never going to see the kind of volatility it's seen before, and then it pulls back dramatically. In the 2021 bull market, people were saying that we would never see a Bitcoin price with a 5 or a 4 on it. And then Bitcoin crashed more than 70%, not bottoming until around $15,000. Whenever a bull says, I don't think we're ever going to see a price that starts with a number like this again, I get nervous. And I've already seen people on X post that we will never see Bitcoin with a price that starts with a 6, much less a 5 or a 4. If you're getting into the space and this is your first time in a Bitcoin bull market, or even your second time, you need to be aware of the fact that there are very common things that happen during Bitcoin bull markets. And once Bitcoin's hit its all-time high for this cycle, with some people predicting anywhere from $188,000 to $300,000 or even $1 million as the next cycle's all-time high, there will be another pullback. It's the nature of Bitcoin. And once the volatility has finally dissipated, Bitcoin will probably settle in and be a much calmer asset, more similar to assets like gold and silver that go through long periods of consolidation before they break out and make new all-time highs. Bitcoin will probably one day not be as exciting as it is right now. But that being said, even though it's always possible that this time is different, we won't see a substantial pullback. I'm not betting on that at all. And so these 5 price targets are what I'm keeping my eye on as we head forward into this bull cycle. It's also important to remember that the current all-time high could be the high for this cycle. Now, that would be unusual, but we could always go into a crypto winter from wherever the all-time high is. That's why whenever I'm making my Bitcoin buying plan, I always take into account the more extreme price targets. I know how much money I'm going to risk in total, and then I decide how much I'm going to put to work at each of the different buy points that I come up with. I wouldn't want Bitcoin to sell off 80% and me to have been all in and down 40%. So I have to make that buying plan in advance and decide how much money do I want to have non-invested if all it does is pull back 30%. You can learn more by watching my video about trading to HODL, which is the technique I use to accumulate Bitcoin. And go to my blog at getirked.substack.com.